Mary had a little lamb.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
Hey!
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
The gentleman will suspend.
For what reason, Madam Speaker?
The gentleman is in breach of quorum.
Cite the rule, Madam Speaker.
Rule 17 of the House.
There's
that
no rule that
prohibits
says I
Rule
can't play
17.
sounds.
The gentleman will suspend.
Why are you trying to prevent the American people
Rule
from listening to what it
17
sounds
of
like
the
in a
House
detention
prohibits
facility?
the use
These are
of that
babies and
device.
kids in a detention facility. Why do you not let the American people hear what they are saying?
The gentleman will suspend
There is
the
no
use
rule in the
of the
House that
device.
says I cannot play sounds from a detention facility.
The gentleman will suspend the use of the device. It is in violation of Rule 17.
Read the rule. It does not say I cannot play sounds from a detention facility. Why are we
The
hiding
Rule
this from the American
17
people?
prohibits the use of an electronic device to make sounds in the chamber.
To make sounds.
The
Why
gentleman,
Why are we hiding it from
the
the American
gentleman
people?
will suspend.
Why are we hiding it from the
The
American
gentleman will suspend. Per Rule 17 of the House.
people? We have 2,300 babies and kids.
The gentleman will suspend. Per Rule 17 of the House, that prohibits the use of a device to make sounds in the chamber.
To make sound.
We have 2,300 babies and kids in detention facilities were ripped away from their parents. I think the American people need to hear this.
You go, Ted Lieu. You go. You should be very proud of yourselves if you live in Ted Lieu's district in California. He's awesome. We are doing this. We are literally doing this, and it's working. Everybody is commenting upon how the president now wants to change the narrative to say that haggard mothers from Honduras are criminals. Good luck with that. He had a little dog and pony show today where he dragged people who, unfortunately were victims of crime to the podium to say that all these haggard mothers from Honduras, Guatemala, Salvador, they're all criminals. They're all, and nobody's buying it. You know, there was a Gallup poll today, and this is what the Republicans know. Okay, this is what they know. They know the same thing that I now know, that you will now know. And that is that 75%, that's a huge number, 75% of Americans support immigration. Yeah, we do. Because we get it. We understand it. We know we need the labor. We know that we have an unemployment rate of 3.8%, which is, full employment. Okay. And we know that we have 5 million open jobs. And we know that there are jobs that are open that we won't do. And people understand that when immigrant labor comes in, it's because we need them. We need them. That is America. That is how America grew. That is how America grows. That is what adds to GDP. It also adds to the bottom line. Immigrants, illegal and not illegal. And not that a human being could be illegal, but people here without documentation, as well as people who are here with documentation, all pay taxes. Isn't that something? Yeah, they all pay taxes. And we all know that crime is lower in communities with more immigrants. Crime is lower in communities that have more immigrants than communities that don't. Everybody knows that. I don't care how many, how he tries to change the narrative and start again with they're all criminals. It isn't going to work because 75% of the American people are very hip to what is going on, and they are appalled, and they are grossed, and they are fighting back. And, the journalists have done an amazing job. The Congress has done an amazing job. The people in this audience have done an amazing job. People across America are doing an amazing job of standing up to a barbaric, chaotic, evil, cruel, Nazi-like president. Oh, yeah, I said it. And so does everybody else. Everybody, from Dianne Feinstein. I never thought I'd see the day where a sitting senator, okay, who is up for re-election, says this is like Nazi Germany. Says it. Actually gives voice to it. I remember when we were back in New York, okay, and I worked for the other people. That was a very sore point for me working there. So I don't like to bring it up all that much. But I do remember that Bush and his torture chambers, the Abu Ghraib torture and the, stacking people naked in pyramids and writing rapist on them and putting hoods on their head and, connecting electrodes to various body parts and all that I saw in photographs, by the way. Yeah, in photographic evidence, I said this is like, the gulags of Russia. This is like the camps of Nazi Germany. This is torture. This is unbelievable, right? And I got yelled at by the liberals for using, you cannot say Nazi. You can't compare the president of the United States to Hitler. Can't say Hitler, can't compare. Well, everybody's doing it now. I mean, all bets are, and if we would have had, not we, but if they who had the money to run something like a liberal network would have had the spine of a ferret, they would have known that was the beginning of the coarsening of a culture that is now, the speed of our moral descent under this man. Yeah, it started escalating under George W. There's no question, spying on his own people. We had like Stasi police officers. We had police brutality going through the roof. We had torture. We had torture chambers, black site prisons, all that. But and then it stopped for 8 years. And yes, Obama deported about 1 million people, but never separated, families. They did actually screw up with unaccompanied minors. And some of those kids, and they've apologized for it. If you don't believe me, read a newspaper today because Jay Johnson has an op-ed, about, the mistakes that the Obama administration made, but how it was not, it was bad, that they had to make tough choices about unaccompanied minors and they screwed up. And some kids actually ended up being slaves for factory farmers, like Americans in Ohio who needed slave labor. And they admit that there were a lot of mistakes, but they had never seen anything like this. Nobody ever has. And so if you don't believe me, you can read Jay Johnson today in the newspaper and his op-ed, and you can see that, they outline where their mistakes were. But this is something of a different nature. This is a remarkable plunge into barbarism. This is like the coarsening of the culture in the most speedy, dedicated way, creating Nazism, invoking it, creating it, encouraging it. I've never seen anything like this. Most people in this country, got wind of it during the Bush years, but they never saw anything like this. And so you do have people like Ted Lieu standing on the floor, playing the audio tape of the children crying. You do have people like Dianne Feinstein who, was so betrayed. I don't know if you remember this. Do you remember when Dianne Feinstein and, Trump had a meeting? They were all at that conference table, and Trump was saying, yeah, we could do a clean DACA bill. No, we just want to solve it. Remember that?
And I don't know how you would feel about this, but I'd like to ask the question, what about a clean DACA bill now, and with a commitment that we go into a comprehensive immigration reform procedure like we did back, I remember when Kennedy was here, and it was really a major effort. And it was a great disappointment that it went nowhere.
I have no problem. I think that's basically what Dick is saying. We're going to come out with DACA. We're going to do DACA, and then we can start immediately on the phase 2, which would be comprehensive.
Would you be agreeable to that?
Yeah, I would like to do that. Go ahead. I think a lot of people would like to see that, but I think we have to do DACA first.
Mr. President, you need to be clear, though. I think what Senator Feinstein's asking here, when we talk about just DACA, we don't want to be back here 2 years later. You have to have security, as the Secretary would tell you.
But I think that's what she's saying.
I think she's saying something different.
No, that was Kevin McCarthy going, no. And the president, is sitting there going, yeah, we should do a clean DACA bill. And then phase 2 would be comprehensive immigration reform. I just want you to know that yesterday, as I told you in real time, the Goodlatte bill, which, people have been writing me. I've never gotten this much email, but people are writing me like crazy. I'm trying to answer as fast as I can, as you know. But they're saying, well, why don't they just, punish the employers who employ these people who are here without document? Well, that we have a system for that. It's called E-Verify. And you know what's crazy is business doesn't want E-Verify because they like the slave labor. They like having immigrant labor. So does Trump, by the way. He paid people from Poland in vodka, right? So the Goodlatte bill, it didn't pass yesterday. 41 Republicans voted against it, and that prevented a majority, because they have the majority. They have 235, right, Republicans. You need 218, and they only got 191 votes, right? Because 41 Republicans said no. And part of what happened was Goodlatte took out, at the request of lobbyists for big corporations, E-Verify. That's who they're serving by doing it. So that failed yesterday. And then there was supposed to be a vote today on comprehensive immigration reform that did address DACA into the way idiot boy Kevin McCarthy, no, we can't do DACA by itself. We got to, So there was a moderate, it's really the extreme right versus the far right. And so Ryan is the far right, and the extreme right was Goodlatte, and that failed. But they actually can't take the vote today. Know why? Know why, everybody? They don't have the votes. They don't have the votes. And you know why they don't have the votes? Because idiot President boy who sat there at that meeting going, yeah, we should do a clean DACA bill, then we could do phase 2, and all friendly and stuff. Yeah, he's tweeted out yesterday that, don't even try House of Representatives. Don't even try. And the House of Representatives was in the middle of voting for the Goodlatte bill. And, Trump wouldn't say, does he support the extreme right bill or does he support the far right bill? And by the way, both bills were drafted without any Democrats at all being involved. So how do they vote for something they haven't read? It can't happen, right? But it doesn't matter because they have 235. They could pass it with 218. But they're not even going to vote today because they don't have 218. They're not going to vote at all. And that's because Trump tweeted today, he sandbagged them today and said to them, don't waste your time. Wait till after the election. Don't waste your time. Don't even bother to vote. And the Republicans were like, but you came up here on Tuesday and, yeah, you talked about yourself and trashed Mark Sanford, but at least you showed up. And now Thursday you tweet, they'll just veto, we won't get 60 votes in the Senate, so, stop doing it. And then today he said, oh, don't even waste your time. The GOP said he is undermining us.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
If you are smuggling a child, then we will prosecute you. And that child may be separated from you as required by law. If you don't want your child to be separated, then don't bring them across the border illegally. It's not our fault. Our policies that can result in short-term separation of families is not unusual or unjustified, and it's really a very short period of time. Having children does not give you immunity from arrest and prosecution. Bringing children with you doesn't guarantee you won't get prosecuted.
That was then. This is now.
the media narrative out there has been that the Trump administration caving to pressure, that these optics have not been good for the administration. What's the response to that?
Well, it hasn't been good. And the American people don't like the idea that we're separating families. We never really intended to do that. What we intended to do was to make sure that adults who bring children into the country are charged with the crime they've committed, instead of giving that special group of adults immunity from prosecution, which is what, in effect, we were doing.
If you come into this country, we will separate from your children and we will prosecute you. I mean, he said it over and over again. Kelly was the one who said it was a deterrent. We'll take good care of the children. We'll put them in foster care or whatever. Christian Nielsen denied that they were even doing it. This is a very sick administration. And, like I said yesterday, the president is an arsonist. He likes to set fire to things like North Korea. Little rocket man, fire and fury will blow you up. You won't even, like the world, you'll see violence in North Korea like the world has never known. Ratcheting up, creating, like hysteria and fear in Guam, for God's sake, and all over the, oh my God, is he crazy enough to do it? And then, having a meaningless, pointless dog and pony show over in, where did they go? Singapore? Where, Mattis said yesterday, nothing's changed in North Korea. They've taken no steps. They've done nothing. And Trump's going, okay, everybody, you could, I rescued you from a nuclear holocaust. I mean, this is what he does. He sets fire to things. Then he, inserts himself into the catastrophe on the side of being a hero to put out the fire. He does this all the time, but he's not doing anything. He's not accomplishing anything except dividing this country, except allowing for racist, xenophobes, alt-right, white supremacist, Nazi, fascist to, flourish in this country. And I'm telling you, you think, certain music coarsens the culture, or certain video games coarsen the culture. Yeah, you know what coarsens the culture? Freaking Nazism. Fascism. That's what coarsens the culture. Language like this president uses about infestation. You say now, I'm starting to hear my words repeated. I'm very happy about that, okay? I really am. I'm very, very happy. I've been reading articles where they've been putting in quotes, Cult 45, thanks a lot, because they know that that's something that was said, and it was said by me, and I hashtag that every time I tweet. But honest to God, man, I'm so happy that people are saying exactly what I'm saying, that they are repeating my words verbatim. I heard yesterday from a conservative pundit, really, and I was thrilled. Trump, literally, she said, Trump is an arsonist who then takes the fire hose from the fireman and declares himself a hero. Okay? And I was so happy to hear it, because this is what it takes to counter propaganda, is everybody getting on the same page, seeing the propaganda, calling it out for propaganda, making lucid, examples of what he's doing so everybody can understand what he's doing. The why, it doesn't matter why. It doesn't matter. Either he's, cruel and a sadist, or he's a fascist, or he's Hitler, or he thinks it helps him win elections. I don't really care. This, again, I don't give a damn. I couldn't give a good damn about what the people that support him want. And you know what? Donnie Deutsch, who is, he's not a liberal. He was saying today, if you vote for Trump, if you endorse this, if you're tweeting about this, if you're still hashtagging MAGA or whatever you're doing, this is on you now. This is on you. You are now part of the Nazis, okay?
It is now the time that he has gone too far. Question mark. Go.
I want to attach what you just said to the question that Joe asked John about politicizing, and I could put an exclamation mark about everything you said, and it was particularly reprehensible when Ivanka said it looks a certain way. What has to happen now, this can no longer be about who Trump is. It has to be about who we are. If we are working towards November, we can no longer say Trump's the bad guy. If you vote for Trump, you're the bad guy. If you vote for Trump, you are ripping children from parents' arms. The mistake that we've made in the past is look at that bad guy over there, look at that bad guy.
Right.
What the Democrats have to do is make the next election a referendum on not who Trump is, but who you are. And that's the big difference. You can no longer now as a voter, because it's now not about taxes, it's not even about some abstract term of immigration or nationalism. If you vote for Trump, then you, the voter, you, not Donald Trump, are standing at the border like Nazis, going, you here, you here. And I think we now have to flip it, and it's a given, the evilness of Donald Trump. But if you vote, you can no longer separate yourself. You can't say, well, he's okay, but. And I think that gymnastics and I think that jujitsu has to happen.
Abso-freaking-lutely. Who are you? What do you stand for? We know what we stand for, and we know we can't wait to vote, and we can't wait to have a Congress that actually can do things, that can actually, figure their way out of a paper bag, that isn't coarsening our culture. We've got a president who's undermining his own party. You had the Republican from Pennsylvania. His name's Ryan Costello. He was quoted in the newspaper today. Okay, he was he said about this comprehensive immigration reform effort. He said Trump undermined it. There are a number of people on the fence that are looking for him to lean in and say, please support this bill. And instead, he questioned strategically why we should even put the bill on the floor. This is a moderate Republican from Pennsylvania who is not seeking re-election, and so therefore he feels free to talk. And he said, and for the members that were squeamish on that bill, that's not a reason to vote for it when a president, doesn't support it. He said that's a reason to vote against it. And another, Jack Kingston, who, is a crazy, he's like best friends with Bill Maher for some strange reason. But Kingston, is now a pundit, and he's a surrogate for the Trump administration. He said he went up to Capitol Hill, and he said virtually all sides of the Republican conference express wariness with Trump's approach on the policy and toward lawmakers in general. He said, quote, I spent some time on the Hill today and yesterday, and members are very frustrated. He's a surrogate for Trump. He said, I think they will get there, but right now they're kind of ticked off because they feel sandbagged with this family separation policy. Trump never told them he was going to do this. He just did it. He didn't think it through. He created this horrible chaos. He has subjected thousands and thousands and thousands of children and haggard mothers and, to torture, essentially. They have no plan for reuniting these people. By the way, I got to tell you, the guy who runs the Office for Refugee Resettlement, you should learn his name. His name is I think it's Lloyd Floyd, or it's really, look him up. ORR. This man was appointed by Donald Trump. You know what his street cred is? You know what he's good? He has no experience in logistics. He has no experience with refugees. He has no experience with resettlement. He has no experience with anything that would, put him in that would qualify him to be in the Office of Refugee Resettlement. He's an anti-abortion activist. Yeah. So he's the one that spent all his time. You remember there was a girl who was an immigrant, and she wanted an abortion, and he sued, that to try and stop her from being able to pay for her own abortion. I don't know. He thought he lorded over her in some weird way because she was a refugee, and that he could tell her what she could do with her body because she was here as a refugee. Yeah, he lost that case because the Constitution applies to all people in the United States, whether they're refugees or they're natives or they're visiting, or it just doesn't matter. But that's what he spent his time doing all these many months, is trying to keep this girl pregnant, and he failed to do it. And so now all of a sudden the president dumps this. He has nothing in place. The alien number. The kids are showing up with nothing, with no number, with no identification, with no, GPS that connects to their nothing. This guy is a complete. They're all like inept, And that's why they got these jobs. Like Betsy DeVos, her record on education is the pissest, poorest. She's never taught a class in her life. Didn't even go to public school. She just, she's just a rich woman who, has a vision for making for-profit education profitable for her freaking family that profited off of, pyramid schemes. I mean, this is sick. And her brother is a defense contractor training the Chinese military to defend themselves against an American invasion. I mean, these are sick people. And the sicker they are, the more Trump likes them. This is very twisted stuff, and everybody gets it now. And I'm just so grateful. This is a former Bush administration advisor. His name's Peter Wenner. He was on the TV last night, and he was saying, it's time for you to wake up and smell the fascism.
This is the thread that goes through. Donald Trump is inconsistent. He flip-flops. He's volatile. But there is a malicious thread that runs through his presidency and his rhetoric. And it comes back to race and to ethnicity. That's the new culture war.
Yes.
Years ago, the culture war was defined by issues having to do with abortion, gay rights, and so forth. That's not the case now. And that has to do with race and ethnicity. And, remember, race is the original sin in American life.
Right.
And it has been the most consistently besetting sin. And Trump keeps coming back to it. The country has had presidents before who have been polarizing. That happens. What we've never had before is somebody who is so intentionally divisive and so intentionally malicious. That is, he goes out of his, he does it all the time, and he does it with an intention to divide on these kind of fault lines of American society. And so it's not a surprise that America is fracturing.
No, because he's a sadist. Okay? He is a cruel barbarian. He's a sadist, this man. He's incompetent and malevolent, and those two things combined always produce a bad result. But on top of it, he's barbaric, he's a sadist, and he loves authoritarian government. He loves Duterte. He loves Vlad. He loves Xi, because Xi is going to be president for life in an autocratic dictatorship known as China. I mean, he's a sick man. And this is what happens when you have a fascist, a sick man, a sadist, somebody who is willing to separate thousands of children from their parents based on lies about criminality of these children, criminality of these parents, criminality. I mean, he's a sick man. When you have the Freedom Caucus, okay, like Raul Labrador from Idaho, for God's sake, He says, when Trump went up to Capitol Hill on Tuesday of this week, Trump went to Capitol Hill, and all he did was, he was supposed to be going there to unify Republicans around a comprehensive immigration bill, a piece of legislation. And instead, Raul Labrador and others who were in that meeting, Mark Sanford also, like I said, the moderate Republicans, they said that during that meeting, the president did nothing but talk about himself. He talked about his electoral victory yet again. He talked about how his policy of, dividing the country this way was useful, how basically cruelty was not a side effect of his chaotic policy, but it was a feature, which is what Stephen Miller said. It's a feature of cruelty, that it was unifying the base. Raul Labrador said that he attacked Mark Sanford, who is also a member of the Freedom Caucus. I told you, Mark Sanford's like one of the most conservative members. He's part of the Freedom Crackers, okay? He's one of those. And Labrador said, and this is, the guy from Idaho, he said there was absolutely no applause when he trashed, Sanford. He said because the president needs to understand that actually lost him votes during that meeting, because the reason he was there was to emphasize that he had our backs, and a different message was sent. The president went and told the press that when he trashed Mark Sanford, that Republicans, quote, applauded and laughed loudly when I mentioned my experience with Mark Sanford. The other conservatives in that meeting said, No, people groaned. They were upset. He lost himself a bunch of votes. He said, our actions and our words have consequences. And if someone goes before a body and says things that aren't true, one could argue that that body cannot trust the person seeking what they are seeking. Lobbyists. Republican lobbyists are quoted in this piece and said most of these guys are clocking the time clock and doing what they have to get reelected. They're professional politicians. Most of them aren't looking to get fired.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844. Do you interpret the effort for an immigration bill to be dead after the president said Republicans should stop wasting their time on immigration until after the election? Democrats are playing games. They have no intention of doing anything to solve this decades-old problem. We can pass great legislation after the red wave of the election. Where does that leave you?
Game over.
Game over.
It takes the wind out of the sails in what might have been a fairly productive weekend in terms of looking for a compromise. I don't know how it happens, because if you look at how contentious this issue is, how much emotion there is, without the president being out front, without the president having legislators' backs, there's no way they're going to take the risk that would be inherent in a major reform bill.
So there you have it, everybody. It's dead. Immigration reform is dead because the president doesn't have the backs of his own party. And they are just trying to hang on to their seats. They are not going to take any of the fallout from doing a comprehensive immigration reform bill because the president, with one tweet, can say, don't vote for this guy. I don't like him. And they'll be out after they take a hard vote. So they're not going to take a hard vote because they're spineless too, okay? They're weasels. These people never do the right thing. They do the thing that's popular or the thing that they see in polling that's selling. And if it's being a Nazi, they'll be a Nazi. But if they have a Nazi president and he's not popular and they do a Nazi thing and he doesn't even have their back as they're doing the Nazi thing, they're just going to lay low and they're going to try and slide under the bar of the election. So, I mean, this man just constantly makes chaotic decisions. He never thinks them through. He doesn't have linear thinking or strategic thinking. He doesn't. All he likes is to be seen as some sort of a hero. So he creates these chaotic moments, and then he says, "I'm going to solve the problem. Only I can do it." And he loses the support of his own party, and then nothing So I just want you to know that there's so much confusion and so much disarray with regard to these children and these parents and what to do about it, that the Customs and Border Patrol made a quiet decision. And in public, they're saying one thing, but in private, in their emails, which were gotten by CNN got a whole bunch of emails from the Customs and Border Protection, authorities there who are telling the underlings what they should be doing. And so they got a whole bunch of emails saying that they've decided they're not going to refer the adults who are caught crossing the border illegally. If they arrive with children, they are not going to refer them for criminal prosecution. First of all, it's a misdemeanor, and it's a petty misdemeanor. Just think back to a day. If you live in a border place, if you have any experience in border communities across America, you know that the border was open and people would go back and forth, and we'd have seasonal workers that would come, and then they would go home. They'd save their money as they were working, and then they would go home after the season was over, and then they would come back in, right? We had all this. We had stores. We had people, going to restaurants on the American side, then going home to their house in Mexico, and those towns prospered. Those towns did just fine. Then all of a sudden, they're brown, and all this racism and hatred, and oh my God, and they're criminals, and they're this, and they're that. And in the 80s, we gave amnesty because we screwed up that place so freaking hard that the people in the military who were fighting either with us or against us fled. And they fled to the United States, just like our 19-year-old fled to Canada. And we never allowed them to vote, and we never allowed them to assimilate, and we never gave them driver's license. And, what did you expect was going to happen to them? They remained very disenfranchised, very poor, and very frustrated. And some of them had no family, and they formed gangs. They were just stoners back then, but... so anyway, I digress. But the Customs and Border Protection put a hold on referring adults caught for a misdemeanor violation for criminal prosecution. They suspended the referrals. They're not going to do it. And they're at odds with their own damn self. Trump says it's still going on. Publicly, CBP, Customs and Border Protection, say they're still referring people, but the email traffic that went back and forth on Wednesday and Thursday that CNN got from Customs and Border Protection shows that they've told the field offices to suspend referring any parents who cross the border illegally with their children for prosecution of misdemeanor illegal entry charges, which neuters the zero tolerance policy. And of course, in public, they're saying, oh no, we're still doing it. There's nothing, there's nothing that has changed. So nobody knows what's going on. Congress doesn't know what's going on. The field offices don't know what's going on. The prosecutors don't know what's going on. The judges don't know what's going on. The lawyers don't know what's going on. I mean, this is insane what he's done. This is bizarre and insane and hideous and ugly and Nazi, okay? It is. So here's another Republican.
The racism that is inherent in everything that Donald Trump does when he talks about Mexico. And like you said, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them the first time.
Thank you.
Yeah. And again, these people, it reminds me of the line in Gatsby about the foul dust.
Yeah.
That floating around in his dreams. Well, let's show this. Let's show this clip from Mexico really quickly, Gene, and then we'll talk on the other side of it. I don't understand who wants to be associated with this for the rest of their lives, because Donald Trump's going to leave. He's going to have his billions of dollars, and he doesn't give a damn what anybody thinks about him. He's just going to destroy everybody around him. Let's look at this clip.
Mexico, by the way, is doing nothing for us. Nothing. They have the strongest immigration laws. They can do whatever they want. They can keep people out of Mexico. They have a 2,000-mile journey up Mexico. They walk through Mexico like it's walking through Central Park. It's ridiculous. They encourage people, frankly, to walk through Mexico and go into the United States because they're drug traffickers, they're human traffickers, they're coyotes. I mean, we're getting some real beauties. Mexico is doing nothing for us except taking our money and sending us drugs. If we took zero tolerance away, you would be overrun you'd have millions of people pouring through our border. If you took zero tolerance away, everybody would come right now. They'd be getting their little belongings, unfortunately, and they would be heading up. You would have a run on this country the likes of which nobody's ever seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gene, so, I mean, let's dig through this. First of all, he talks about Mexicans as being rapists when he starts a campaign. He calls Hispanics breeders this year. He's now talking about infested. And yes, I'd say, we shouldn't use Hitler references and Nazi references and fascist references or Marxist references. But when you start talking about people coming in and infesting a society, infesting a culture, that really actually is straight out of Adolf Hitler's playbook. So you can be offended if you want, but that's out of Hitler's playbook.
Just saying. Talking about people as animals. talking about people as being vermin or infesting or invaders or, painting an entire ethnicity as nothing but criminals or what. I mean, this is this is right out of Hitler. This is right out of the separating of kids is right out of slavery. This is anti-Semitic language. This is just fascist language. It's very familiar to a lot of us. It's very familiar, and that's what's so disturbing about it. Is it sounds all too familiar, and it's barbaric, and it's cruel, and it's cruel on purpose. The reason he does it is to be cruel, to gather all the sadists in one place. He's a sick man, and you talk about coarsening a culture. This is what does it faster than anything is hatred. You got an entire country ate up with hatred. You're not going to get decency, respect. You're not going to have, cooperation or, good ideas. It just can't happen. Lloyd in California.
Hi, Randy.
Hey, Lloyd.
Your show. You do great work as always. The thing that got me yesterday was, I check out Weather Nation, the app on the Weather Channel, and not only was McAllen, Texas, full of 1 to 3 feet of water, but if you looked at the National Visible Satellite weather map on Weather Nation between 10 and 11 Pacific Daylight Time, there was an absolute question mark going from the Great Lakes down where the dot was a huge cluster.
Why are you giving me a weather report?
Because it was a question mark. It was literally a question mark from the top of the country to McAllen, Texas, being the dot. And things like that don't happen that often when you're looking at weather stuff. But the other thing is that no one's bringing up the fact that they're blowing off habeas corpus.
Yeah, if you're here, you're protected under the Constitution. You're entitled to due process. You're entitled to constitutional rights of, liberty. You are. I mean, for a misdemeanor crime, nobody should be criminally prosecuted because it's not a crime. It's not a federal criminal thing. It's a petty misdemeanor. But I don't know why I got the weather report. You wasted my time. Charlotte in Sun City, Arizona.
This is me. Hi, Randy. I'm a first-time caller.
Hi.
I like watching your show.
Thank you.
My question is, Trump has got everyone looking at the chaos that he's created with the children and families at the border, while Congress has been passing bills that have cut something like $23 million out of Medicare.
Yeah,
and,
that's the tax bill.
Yes, but and then also he's made it so that you have that you can go across state lines and buy that junk health care, and he's cutting food stamps by making it harder to obtain them. And but he's doing all this, it seems to me, purposely so that people will forget about all the things that he's doing behind the scenes.
Yeah, but it isn't really behind the scenes. This was in the tax bill, okay? And everybody understood that it was in the tax bill, and everybody understood that he was cutting, the individual mandate, which was going to create a 1,000% increase in your premiums, and the average tax cut that people got. Not corporations, not the wealthy who don't have to pay taxes on $20 million or whatever the crazy, 22 that they inherit now. The average tax cut that people got was $680 per year, and the average increase in healthcare premiums is $1,000. So you do the math. You tell me who came out ahead. It wasn't you. Corporations got their tax rate cut from 35 to 20 or 22, whatever it was. I mean, this is ridiculous. And it was all out in the open. This wasn't a secret, okay? Everybody knew it. But these crazy people who are motivated by their hatred, motivated by their disdain for, others who are, a part of this cult 45, they didn't care that they were going to pay. They didn't care that it was going to cost them, more to live. I mean, today they did a breakdown of the tax bill because I think it's been 6 months now since it passed. And they found out that, 100, just like we said, like most of the money went to stock buybacks by big corporations, okay? And income did not rise. It rose like maybe 1%. And ordinary people got nothing out of this tax cut. In fact, ordinary people are going to pay more for their health care. And yeah, now they're selling these skimpy plans again because they're not illegal and they don't cover anything. And you won't find that out until you go to use it, that you're not covered for jack crap under this stupid plan. I mean, and I hear them on the radio being advertised all the time. I won't advertise them, but I hear them all the time. Like when I'm driving, I hear ads for this plan will save you thousands of dollars because it covers absolutely nothing. This is what we used to have are these, well, you ought to market it under like, Trump University healthcare because it's as much a fraud as that was. He's a con man. But it didn't happen, quietly. It happened way out in the open. But there are people in this country that are so full of hate and can't think their way out of a paper bag. And were all for this tax cut, thinking that they were going to somehow get relief. And they got nothing. And corporate America got everything. Corporate America got just everything it wanted on its wish list, and ordinary people got nothing. And Democrats, our position was let's legislate for the workers. Let's legislate for wages. Let's get a minimum wage of $15, a living wage. These were our priorities. Let's fix what's broken in Obamacare. Maybe we do offer a public option and see if people want to buy into Medicare. That would be a public option, right? Or maybe we go for single payer. I doubt that it would have happened right away, but a public option, meaning you had a choice. I would have bought into Medicare in a heartbeat if I could. But oh no, instead you voted for a sadist. And he's got a war on the poor going on. There's no question. He's putting work requirements on disability payments. Oh, everyone's going to be so sorry. But like I said, they're always sorry after they vote for a guy like this. I mean, not that we've seen anything like this, but they were sorry after Bush.
Mary had a little man. The fall. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream. Change has come to America.
Believe it. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Bringing their, quote, little belongings. And, of course, Mexico taking our money, doing nothing but taking our money and sending us drugs. How does Mike Pence, how do Karen Pence, how do any of these people continue being associated with a man who is now openly bigoted against everybody who is not white and rich?
That's exactly right. Mike Pence stands there and he puts on his frown and he nods sagely at the most sort of racist, vile comments and sentiments coming out of the mouth of the President of the United States that he serves so loyally and unquestioningly. And people will remember. I certainly hope people remember. This should leave an indelible stain on Mike Pence and on his career and on the others around him. I mean, this is the most naked sort of white supremacism is all you can call it. Really, that is Donald Trump's sort of core philosophy about America, is that it is a white country, and that brown people and black people and other people of color who come here don't belong here. They don't belong in the MAGA great America that he's trying to, in his mind, recreate. It's an America that never existed, but it's the America in his head, and that's President of the United States.
That's the president of the United States. He is a white supremacist. He's a bigot. He's a sadist on top of it. He's disorganized in his thinking and in his practices. He is a guy who knows how to go bankrupt, and he's a guy who has no idea that taking a 9-month-old and putting them in a cage is wrong. Now, how do you have moral leadership on a world stage if you have a leader who believes that putting a 9-month-old in a cage is right? Or putting an anti-abortion activist to head the Office of Refugee Resettlement and then creating a crisis knowing that the guy that's in charge of these kids, his name, by the way, I looked at it, is E. Scott Lloyd. E. Scott Lloyd. He's in charge of the Office of Refugee Resettlement. This is the agency that is now charged with caring for these kids after they've been separated from their parents. He has no experience working with refugees. He has no experience in logistics. He has no experience in anything except trying to prevent a pregnant migrant from getting an abortion. It's what he spent all these months doing. Nothing in his background indicates that he has any ability to handle complex humanitarian crises or challenges or logistical. That's why it's so chaotic, because everyone that Trump has put in there, he knows all the best people. They're all compromised people. They're all ideologues. They're people who either are trying to line their pockets by, with government service, like Tom Price, who had to leave, or Betsy DeVos, who's still there, or, Pruitt. I mean, they're all dirty. Every single one of them is a filthy, dirty scoundrel or worse. And this man is an ideologue. He's an anti-abortion activist, and he has no credentials to be in charge of all these children. I mean, this is a sick thing. Now, remember, but this is your president. Remember, he created a crisis at airports with the Muslim ban, okay? He created, he's been ignoring 4,000 dead people in Puerto Rico, and it's now hurricane season again here. And today they're minting some congratulatory coin to congratulate themselves on how they handled Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. He's a very sick man. Cavalierly, he separated thousands of babies and toddlers and young, elementary age kids from their parents with no process in place to reunite them. He says Nazis, some of them are fine people. This is a bigoted, I don't know, they call him a bigot because they're polite. He's a racist fuck. And it's now on you people who support him. It's now on you. You continue to support him, then we get to call you a racist Nazi. End of story. And maybe you're proud that you're a racist Nazi, but we don't want you here. We don't want you here. Go someplace where they like Nazis. You know what I mean? Just find a place on this planet. You're going to be hard pressed to do it, but find a place to emigrate to that actually embraces this, because it ain't here. 75% of Americans support immigration, and all that this did, this whole, and it's still going on. And let's not pretend that we have a way of reuniting these families. Again, I'm not clear if Border Patrol is still referring these people for prosecution in criminal courts for a misdemeanor, petty misdemeanor. But it looks like from their emails, they're not. But from their public statements, they say they are. The Department of Justice, Jeff Sessions, says, yeah, we are. Nobody even knows what's going on. Congress doesn't know what's going on. They won't let Congress members, they won't let senators or House members into these facilities. There are 81 companies that are 81 companies are splitting. Here's a number for you. $1.5 billion to put babies in cages. 81 companies are splitting $1.5 billion. And there's no oversight. You can't get in there. Okay, congressmen can't get in there. Senators can't get in there. Now, why do you think they don't want anybody in there? Because they're doing such a great job? No, yesterday's whole show was to show you that these companies that have had babies die in their care, that are injecting the children to keep them placid with, 10 different, a cocktail of 10 different drugs, including anti-Parkinson's medication, including anti-seizure medication, including, Thorazine. I mean, Klonopin. To keep them, quiet and to keep them sleeping and this is sick stuff. They won't let anybody in there. And by the way, they keep getting their grants renewed. Over and over, they keep getting these grants renewed. This is sick. Very sick. And we only have limited, space. And so now we're going to farm them out to military bases where civilians can't get on the base, right? This is ridiculous. The government is being ridiculous. And that's all you need to say is, you're being ridiculous. Irina Lantana.
Randi.
Yes.
The reason why I do care so deeply is this is our country.
Yep.
And what is being done right now in our country is, the list. You know the list.
I know the list.
He's deranged, everything else. And this is why my phone calls today, every day, I am really getting tired of making all these phone calls, but I realize that doing nothing is not an option.
Yep.
So I persist. But my phone calls today, I have been asking, and one good thing that I can tell you, cannot get through to Mr. Ryan's office and any one of his, whether it's, Kenosha and whatever the hell places up there in Wisconsin.
Janesville,
yes. You cannot get through. The lines are either ringing busy or you get this message that your call cannot be, taken at this moment. I'm hoping that everybody is calling just like I am. But the reason why I'm calling now is because I am asking we have a constitution of this country, and it contains a 25th Amendment to protect this country and all the people in it, regardless of how they got here. This man has no business being in the Oval Office. All he knows how to do is destroy. And watching him today, this coward, behind grieving families.
Oh, I saw that.
I know a lot about grief. I have been through an awful lot of loss, which I'm not going to get into. But I know all the stages of denial and depression and anger. And right now, I'm teetering between anger and just plain, got to do something, got to fix this. And what I am trying to do is to plant the seed. I don't know, because I don't think I should be having to do this. It is blatantly obvious to me that he is insane. And we have, like I said, the 25th Amendment saying that, this is a protection for our country, that he should not be in the presidency. What he is doing is so dangerous.
It is dangerous. You think about, the kids and, how this is a permanent scar on the rest of their days. But think about North Korea, okay? North Korea is a really easy to understand thing. He creates an emergency because he's thoughtlessly belligerent and nasty and, all that. And then after he sparks international panic, he diffuses it by arranging for a spectacle. Nothing is accomplished at all, but then he tweets out that he solved everybody's problem. Now, that is sick. There's something that's... And it's more dangerous than when he first got involved, because now North Korea is aligning itself with Russia and China.
And let us not forget about Russia, because this all goes back to prior to the election and how he and Russia found the perfect puppet in him.
Yeah.
How this is all about Putin's hatred for Obama, for Hillary, and with Trump, how they are watching our country coming apart.
Oh, yeah.
And this has got to stop. And I don't understand why. I mean, this is a constitutional crisis. Republicans need to take responsibility.
So let me stop you right there, because I just want to say this out loud to people who all say to me, when will we know that what is a constitutional crisis? I've heard that question a million times. How do we know, or what is a constitutional crisis is the question. This is it. This is it. This is what it looks like. It looks like a madman in the Oval Office literally splitting apart 9-month-old babies and 1-year-old babies and 4-year-olds and 6-year-olds and 7-year-old boys.
People coming here seeking political asylum. This is the United States of America, where people have the privilege, the right, the opportunity to do that. Where else on the planet? What other country is like the United States? And
well, there's a lot of countries that are very free. I mean, let's not. The reason why America is different is because America led that movement toward democracy. We took a fascist Germany and showed them the benefit of being an open, free democracy.
And the people from Central America are not going to be able to go to any other country other than the United States on foot, dragging these little children whose lives they are simply trying to save.
But that's not true either. They do go to other countries. I just want people to be very, aware. I have a very special bond with Central America, as you know, okay? Yes. I've lived there. I own a house there. I know the people. I know the culture. It's a loving, sweet family, very family, almost 100% Christian culture down there, okay? Family is first. Everything else is second, okay? And to paint these people as being evil or wrong or
and that's what he knows how to do.
But they do go to other countries. They do. They go to Panama. They go to Costa Rica. They go to Mexico. Mexico helps us in two ways. First of all, this year alone, they've turned back 150,000 people. And second, they do give visas to some special circumstance people, and they let them stay in Mexico. And then others avoid the well-traveled path. They go, because they're trying to make it here, because they think that there's the best hope is here, okay? But don't tell yourself they don't go to other countries. Of course they go to other countries.
But I'm talking about the ones that did come here.
Yes.
And the ones that are in our care right now.
Right, and they are our responsibility as long as we hold them.
Last night I was told by the owner of Red Hen in Lexington, Virginia, to leave because I work for President Trump, and I politely left. Her actions say far more about her than about me. I always do my best to treat people, including those I disagree with, respectfully, and will continue to do so. As you can imagine, Fred, the Yelp reviews for the Red Hen in Virginia are very political right now. Jokes aside, though, we should point out that this is only the latest instance that we've seen a Trump administration official have a hard time while going out to eat this week. We saw reports that Stephen Miller was heckled as he was trying to eat at a Mexican restaurant, and we've seen video of the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security getting booed out of a restaurant here in D.C., also a Mexican restaurant, as a result of the Trump administration's immigration policy.
Well, I got to say, I'm all about the shun and shame. I'm all about that. I have been saying this for a very, very long time. There are, few places that have laws that say that you have to serve somebody that you disagree with politically. I mean, you can't, unless you're Masterpiece Cake Shop, discriminate against somebody because of their sexual orientation or because of their gender or religion. But I'm not aware of, any law that expressly prohibits a business from refusing service to a customer because they are heinous, and despise. She was at a farm-to-table restaurant, and she despises the people who pick the food, the people who prepare the food, and the people who serve the food. So, sure, I'm all about shunning. I'm all about shaming. I got to say, she tweeted, that she treats everybody with respect, and that, well, of course, we're talking about Sarah Sanders. If you haven't heard, there's a little restaurant. It seats about 26 people. It's really a small little family-run restaurant called the Red Hen, and she went there with some friends and family, Sarah did, and they served her the cheese course, and the staff was seriously disturbed by having to serve her, and they called the owner, and the owner came in, and the owner said, "May I have a word with you?" and took her aside and quietly said to her, you are inhumane and an unethical person, and you defend an inhumane and unethical, administration, and so I'd like to ask you to leave. Woo! And so Sarah tweeted out that last night I was told by the owner at Red Hen in Lexington, Virginia to leave because I work for at POTUS. at POTUS? What about at Real Donald Trump, where he does the majority of his tweeting? Yeah. And I politely left. Her actions say far more about her than about me. I always do my best to treat people, including those I disagree with, respectfully, and will continue to do so. Didn't she tell Jim Acosta he couldn't understand small, short sentences? I mean, she is so snide and nasty, and by the way, I don't know if lying and blaming others and denying due process, when you are the leader of the free world who has taken an oath to execute the laws of the United States, faithfully execute the laws of the United States, is respectful to anybody at any time, anywhere in this country. I don't think that, defending a president who said, hey, rough up legal protesters and I'll pay their legal bills, or that suspects ought to have their heads bashed into the side of the car. I think you treat them too delicately, or refers to countries as shithole countries, or says he can grab women by the P word. Now he's down to kidnapping children. Before he said, McCain wasn't really a war hero because he likes people that didn't get captured, even though he is Cadet Bone Spurs and didn't even serve. Loves veterans, but appoints Ronnie Jackson to be the head of the VA, who's now under investigation for handing out prescription drugs without prescriptions, to anybody on the plane. He attacks the courts. He attacked Judge Curiel because his family came from Mexico, and so he couldn't sit in judgment of the Trump University fraud case, which he lost because it was a fraud. I mean, I can't tell the difference between Honduran mothers and MS-13 who are tattooed from head to toe. Can't tell the difference. Calls them invading infestors. Honest to God, where is the... I think that ship has sailed, Sarah, about being able to claim the moral high ground here. I think that ship has sailed. But might I suggest Masterpiece Cake Shop for your... dining pleasure, since they will obviously have time for you because they deny so many people service based on their sexual orientation, that I'm sure they have time to take your order, which I hope is for a nice going away party cake. Now, I got to tell you, I am all about shunning and shaming. There is nothing illegal about it. It is not violent. It is not threatening. And by shunning, I mean, if you actually, everybody's like, how do I talk to a Trump supporter? The answer now is you don't. You shun them. You put your hand up and you say, I'm sorry. You have officially been shunned. You avoid them. You ignore them. You shun them. And shaming them looks a little like this, okay? Okay, that was outside Christian Nielsen's townhouse in Washington, D.C. That's called shaming. There was no violence there. Nobody was hitting anybody. They didn't sucker punch a black man at a rally like it happened at the Trump thing. This is quietly shaming people, okay? And I'm all for it. I'm all for it. If protest becomes something that is distasteful or causes pundits to sit on the TV and say, oh, they're taking the low road. I'm sorry, but I think peaceful protest is taking the high road. And I am all for shunning and shaming. There are very, very few federal laws. I think there are some in the Virgin Islands that prohibit you from refusing service to somebody based on their political affiliation or ideology. Also, I think Seattle, the city of Seattle has an ordinance, and also D.C. has an ordinance that does prohibit from, refusing service because of your political affiliate, but no place else. So feel free, everybody. Feel free. I will tell you, the Supreme Court is not going to take up the case of a florist who refused to serve gay people, because the only reason why they decided the Masterpiece Cake Shop in the favor of Masterpiece Cake Shop was because they said that the Colorado Civil Rights Division was rude to the Masterpiece Cake Shop owner. And that they yelled at him, and that they yelled at him that his, religious freedom didn't count. And so the narrow ruling that they made. But, in the meantime, I got to tell you, civil rights lawyers have said there have been many cases involving establishments that are barring black people, that are, not allowing members of the LGBT community, again, florists and cake bakers. But shunning people for their political ideology, that's uncommon in this country. And I want to make it as common as refusing service, even though refusing service to gay people is illegal and shunning somebody is not. This is what Maxine Waters was talking about this weekend.
Already, you have members of your cabinet that are being booed out of restaurants, who have protesters taking up at their house, who's saying no peace, no sleep. No peace, no sleep. And guess what? We're going to win this battle, because while you try and quote the Bible, Jeff Sessions and others, you really don't know the Bible. God is on our side. On the side of the children, on the side of what's right, on the side of what's honorable, on the side of understanding that if we can't protect the children, we can't protect anybody. And so let's stay the course. Let's make sure we show up wherever we have to show up. And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
I love that. I'm so all about that, and people are trashing her. Oh, it's too strong. It's too this. It's too that. Let me tell you something. Maxine Waters, her life was threatened because some listener of a show like this, talk radio, didn't like what she was saying about wanting to impeach the president, a lawless president who is now refusing due process to literally hundreds of thousands of people. He just wants them deported and violate the Constitution. And of course, the Constitution, as I have to point out to so many idiots every single day on the Twitter, at Randi Rhodes, please follow us. They don't understand that if you're here and you do set foot on our soil, then the Constitution also applies to you. Oh, yes. Isn't that beautiful, everybody? It's the beauty of the Constitution. No matter how you arrived here, the Constitution applies to you once you are here. Yeah, it's how we keep law and order in this country, and it's how we keep, the laws in place to protect the most vulnerable. All right. So I just want you to know that on July 16th, there will be a trial now for it won't be a jury trial because the man's already pled guilty, but there will be a sentencing hearing on July 16th for a guy who has the unfortunate name. See, this is interesting. The man who runs the Office of Refugee Resettlement, his name is Scott Lloyd. And the man who threatened Maxine Waters' life and will be sentenced on July 16 is also named Scott Lloyd. So maybe we ought to shun all Scott Lloyds. I don't know. But this one is 45 years old. He entered into a plea agreement with federal prosecutors for the Central District of California. It is a felony offense. He threatened the life of Maxine Waters by phone. He's now facing 10 years in federal prison and a $250,000 fine. On October 22nd, 2017, Scott Lloyd, 45, he called Maxine Waters' office after he heard her on a talk radio program and didn't like her political position, say. And so he left the following message, and it's abbreviated. He said, if you continue to threaten the president, which you've done this morning with your comments, you're going to wind up dead, Maxine, because we will kill you. And then he downshifted into using the N-word, etc. And even in light of all this, she's still putting herself out there and saying, shun these people, shun them and shame them, and make them feel unwelcome. Any member of the cabinet who supports this lawless president, who supports camps, now the Navy is going to erect what they have actually described as temporary and austere camps. This is a very sick situation we find ourselves in, and I like the nonviolent protest. I'm all about it. And shunning and shaming works for me. I've been hashtagging shun and shame for a long time already. For a long time. It's the tried and true, road-tested, biblical thing to do. Hashtag shun and shame. I'm all about it. I mean, the amount of vitriol that this right wing has brought to this country, and this is peaceful, and it's literally quiet.
Well, you know, this president just wakes up in the morning and tweets policy. He does not work with his experts. He does not work with his personnel. He is creating public policy on his own, by himself, in whatever way he decides it should go in the morning when he wakes up. This is outrageous. He is absolutely being destructive to this country. I don't know why people are not screaming in the streets about what we're experiencing with this president. I have said all along, he is a dishonorable man. He's a despicable human being. He has no good values. He's dangerous. He does not care about our democracy. He's aligned himself with Putin, who has our democracy. He loves the strong men and the dictators of the world. That's who he's looking to be friends with, because he's just like them, and he wants to be just like them. He wants to run this country like them. And we've got to push back, and we've got to say no. I, for example, have stepped way out there. I said this man needs to be impeached. I know a lot of people think we're not ready to say that. Some people have said long time ago that he would become presidential. He will never be presidential.
Damn
this
right.
man does not have any good values, and I believe he needs to be impeached. As a matter of fact, a long time before he's doing what he's doing now with these children, I think he had done enough to undermine this country and to have us understand that we cannot trust him, that we should have come with an impeachment resolution. And so I believe that we cannot wait until the next presidential election. We've got to resist him, and I want to see him impeached.
Yeah, me too. And you know what? As of this moment, I mean, he's been impeachable, prior to this for obstruction. I mean, there's no question. When he went on Lester Holt and he said that he fired James Comey over this Russia thing, he became impeachable for obstruction. But that said, he is totally impeachable today. If we had a functioning Congress that took its Article 1 powers seriously, which it does not, okay? They will not be a check on this president's power. It's sad. They're spineless. They're terrified of his Twitter finger. What kind of men are these? What kind of people are these? These Republicans in the House who can't even whip together a majority to pass an immigration bill. Last week the House was trying to pass an immigration bill. 41 Republicans peeled off. They didn't have a majority of their majority to pass anything on immigration. And they're going to try again this week. And they still don't have 218 votes. They hold 235 seats. And they can't pass anything because they're spineless wonders. They're incredibly ideological. They don't give a damn. But here's the thing about the president. The president is withholding or threatening to withhold due process for people who are protected in this country under our Constitution. Okay? And their rights to due process are guaranteed to them because their little toe is on our soil. Like it, don't like it, that's the Constitution. I don't really care, about what these people want anymore. But you have a president now who is saying, I don't want to give due process. He took an oath to faithfully execute the laws. If he doesn't like the laws, too bad. Then his Congress, he's got a majority in the House, he's got a majority in the Senate. He can, And he just can't get it together. He tweets out these crazy things. He is extorting these people now, saying, hey, if you sign this piece of paper, if you sign a voluntary deportation order, we'll bring your child to you at the airport. Except they don't know where the kids are. They have no idea because this man, Scott Lloyd, who's running the Office of Refugee Resettlement, has no experience in refugee resettlement, no experience in logistics. In fact, this guy, if you go to the homework section, please sign up for the homework so I don't have to keep saying that. But, you go to randyrhodes.com and in the top right-hand corner, there's a button, okay? And sign up and you'll get the homework every morning and you'll get like this roundup of stuff that I've put together for you to see from all different news sources so you can consider for yourself what the solution to this is. But in there today, there's articles about how these people are being extorted. And there's articles about Scott Lloyd, who's running the Office of Refugee Resettlement, who is nothing but an anti-abortion ideologue. It's all he does. He has spent his entire time at the Office of Refugee Resettlement, a position he is wholly unqualified for, just like Ronnie Jackson was not qualified to be the VA secretary, just like Tom Price was not fit to be the Health and Human Services secretary. Can you imagine? Tom Price would be in charge of these kids. I mean, this is a sick administration. Oh, I know the best people. You know the worst people. And you pick people who are terrible at their job because your goal is to break the American system of governance. You just want to break things. You have nothing to put in its place. I was reading over the weekend. Oh, this was light reading for the weekend. Mick Mulvaney's ridiculous government reorganizational plan where he wants to privatize the Postal Service, privatize Social Security, he wants to put the Labor Department together with with education. I mean, this is sick. The Department of Education handles $1 trillion worth of student loans. It handles elementary school education. It has to take all kids that show up at the public school doors. It has to do special education for those who qualify and need it. And he wants to put it into the Department of Labor. What, we're going to bring back child labor now? I got a funny feeling a lot of these kids are going to end up being child laborers on factory farms, and we're never going to know what happened to them because we don't know where they are today. You got over 2,000 kids we don't know where they are. And the guy who's in charge and is supposed to know where they are, all he did was he kept traveling to Texas the whole time he's been at the Office of Refugee Resettlement. He kept going to Texas to try to stop an undocumented teenager from obtaining an abortion. Except she actually had a lawyer and she was able to get it all the way through the court. Her name is Jane Doe. She didn't want her, obviously, she would be threatened if she gave her real name. But she was able, the Court of Appeals, Texas, this is Texas for God's sake. A Texas court ruled for her and said this is settled law. The Supreme Court ruled in 1973, and the Constitution applies to her too. What's wrong with you people? And he kept on fighting, and he kept on fighting. Went all the way through the Texas courts who ruled for her, and then an appeals court ruled for her. And she went and she terminated her pregnancy with birth control. This guy is just a crusader, an anti-abortion crusader. You know what his background is? This is going to freak you out. He was also part of the Terry Schiavo movement. Remember when Sean Hannity was broadcasting here in Florida outside of Terry Schiavo's hospice? Hospice they were protesting. Hospice. And we're taking the low road? Are you freaking kidding me? And he was part of that, saying that she should be kept alive through feeding tubes. Yeah, he was one of those. And he's, friends with Sean Hannity and that whole Fox News crowd. And then he started, this legal practice called Legal Works Apostolate. That provides legal representation and counsel while remaining faithful to church teachings. I hate to tell you, this guy is a devout Catholic. He's got 6 kids himself. But I got to tell you something. The Catholic Church has spoken, okay? Lloyd, Scott Lloyd, I've written to the Office of Refugee Resettlement, and I told whoever it was that was reading that email that they ought to defy this man, that this man is operating outside the law. And I don't know, they must have recognized my name because I did not say what I did for a living, but then they referred me to the media department. I said, done. Then I wrote to the media department, and I said, this guy is an ideologue, and you should resist executing his orders because you're going to be just as guilty as he is. He literally refused contraception on moral grounds during the W administration. He was an attorney over at HHS, and he said, women shouldn't be able to have access to contraception. You remember that whole thing? And that got Rush Limbaugh. Remember, he called Sandra Fluke. He said, if I'm going to pay for your sex, I want to be able to watch it. Remember that? And he called her a prostitute. Yeah, we all suffered because of that, because I worked for the same company, and the company was boycotted company-wide, and, nobody seemed to care that there was the lone liberal, me, who was also boycotted as because I got caught up in the company boycott, and we lost our advertisers, same as them, because we shared all these same advertisers. And the same thing's happening on Facebook, by the way, okay? Over the weekend, I tried to boost my post. I tried to boost Friday's free show so that, more people could, find us. And after all this time on Facebook, they rejected my ad saying political speech is not protected. Can you believe this crap? So if anybody out there is a really brilliant First Amendment attorney, I have to tell you that Facebook is now, because the Russian bots and the Russian trolls paid in rubles, and Facebook doesn't know what the F to do about it, they are now banning anybody who talks about any current events issues, any political, views expressed on their show from advertising their show. And I got news for you. There are rules about political advertising, but they apply to people who fundraise for or advocate for a single issue or for a candidate. And we don't do that. Or else how could talk radio exist? They don't know what they're doing. But see, every time this stuff happens, they paint it with such a broad brush that people like me, with our small little niche of the universe in the broadcasting, field, in the broadcasting arena, we get trashed too. We get ruined. So I started this weekend trying to get through a big, long authorization process. I had to give them at Facebook my passport. This is unbelievable. And I'm going through all the hurdles. And if they still refuse to allow us to advertise our broadcast simply because it has a political viewpoint, that's a violation. Because political speech is the most protected speech there is. So this is what happens. This is what happens. This is crazy. And this is their wet dream, that voices like ours would be drowned out in favor of the Antichrist's voices.
There's a very easy way not to be put in these camps, and that's not to come into the country, to stay in Mexico. If they're fleeing some sort of horror in Guatemala, and by the way, there's no war going on in Latin America right now, so I don't know what war you think they're fleeing.
2,000 children that we know, due to a change in policy, a new zero-tolerance policy, have been physically removed from their mothers and fathers in the last month. Do you, Ann Coulter, think that is humane?
If their mothers and fathers want them back, they can take them and leave the country. The end.
Actually, that's
my
not true.
Policy, if someone
Actually, that's not
breaks
true.
into
That's the
my
whole
house,
point.
is I'm going to hold a gun on them.
The whole point is, because they're now criminalising anybody that attempts to enter the country illegally, they cannot actually just go and take their kids and leave because they're being prosecuted for a criminal offence. That is the point. So that's not correct.
Oh, that is absolutely false. They don't have to walk in. And if somebody walks into my house, I'm going to put a gun on them, and don't whine to me that, oh, that's so cruel to hold a gun on someone. You don't want me to hold a gun on you, don't break into my house.
Okay, so this is the ridiculous logic that your private house is the same as the public country. And that somehow These people are breaking in instead of coming here seeking asylum from gang violence, from extrajudicial killings, from death squads. There's a 24-year-old detainee. He doesn't want to give his name, but I'll tell you who he is. He's the father of the little girl. Remember the little 6-year-old who memorized her aunt's phone number? And she said, no, my mother said that if we got separated, you would call my aunt would come and get me. So the father, he's using a pseudonym. His name is Carlos. It's not his real name. He's the father of this little 6-year-old. They are extorting him. They are telling him that if he agrees to sign a voluntary deportation piece of paper, that he would get reunited with his 6-year-old daughter who was separated from him after he crossed the border in May. 2 federal agents approached him and suggested that if he wants to see his daughter, they can arrange to have her at the airport when he is, getting on the flight for deportation, but only if he agrees to sign the order and give up his claim of asylum. And he said, I was told I would not be deported without my daughter, and now I want to revoke my voluntary deportation order I signed because I want legal help to fight my case. I signed it out of desperation, but the truth is, I can't go back to Honduras. We will be killed. I need help. I need help. And once you say you will be killed, you need help, you have a claim for asylum that needs to be adjudicated. I mean, they are the most lawless freaks in the world, okay? They are ugly. They are lawless. Somebody breaking into your home is not the same as somebody crossing the border claiming asylum. You don't have to come through a port of entry to claim asylum. In fact, you know what does come through the ports of entry? Drugs, yeah, because it takes like vehicles and stuff, and they hide the drugs in the vehicles, in the tire, in the bumpers, and in the trunks, and in the chassis, and underneath, and in the seats, and in the people who are here with their children are not gang members. And if we have an administration that is incapable of discerning the difference between Honduran mothers and fathers and gang members who are tattooed from head to toe with satanic tattoos and MS-13 across their chests, backs, and necks.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
It wasn't President Trump's idea to have everyone leave from Central and South America in June and well up at the border. Somebody has to deal with this issue. It doesn't matter who the president is. If you don't like his policy, he's also open to your policy rather than just criticizing his. He's trying to send a message to the other countries. This is not the way you do it because this is a country that has rules and laws. The port of entry would be one thing. We can boast of those laws, but we just can't let everybody in that wants to be here. And these are not, like it or not, these aren't our kids. Show them compassion. But it's not like he's doing this to the people of Idaho or Texas. These are people from another country, and now people are saying that they're more important than people in our country who are paying taxes, who have needs as well.
Yeah. Nobody is saying anything of the sort, but this is their talking point, that we are saying that other people's children are more important than our children.
People who have kids feel very compassionate towards these 4-5-year-old children who have been ripped from their parents.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think you show a lot of compassion. I don't think any of you are showing any compassion to all of the American parents who are permanently separated from their children by illegal aliens who have killed them.
As a 4-year-old child being separated from his parents.
They're using children. They're using children.
Yes, the government is using children.
Should not have a border.
The government is using children as a political weapon. No. And it is bordering on child abuse. And you should find it in yourself to feel empathy for those children.
I feel a lot of empathy for American children.
Oh, just shut up, Ann, really. Just, you are the bottom of the pickle barrel. You are brine, okay? This is really disgusting. And obviously it's a talking point because you have them on Fox and Friends saying, well, they're prioritizing their kids again. This is just grotesque. All children matter. All of them. And once you start saying that only some of them matter, then you are you have no moral high ground. You have no ability to invoke the Bible in front of me ever. You have lost the argument because all children are precious. All children, all human life is to be valued. And the idea that these vile inflammatory terms, about, it depends on your country of origin. It depends on your economic class. It depends on your ethnicity, whether or not you are valuable to this world. That is just, that is sick. There's something so Nazi about it. There's something so slavey about it. There's something so murderous about it. There's something totalitarian about it. There's something that you would think would happen in Rwanda or in Cambodia or in Orthodox Russia or in wealthy Germany. I mean, these are things you don't think happen in a country like ours. You should read some of the claims, okay? There's a Salvadoran migrant. She's a woman. Her name's Carmen Palma. She came with her 6-year-old daughter. And she said, in El Salvador, there is only death. Dead bodies are in the streets. Women are violated and killed. We're ready to risk having our children separated from us so we can come to the United States. Nobody does that cavalierly or carelessly. And to think that they do is to be without soul. It's to be without respect for humankind or any meaningful human emotion. These people are dead inside, literally dead inside. They need to be shunned. They need to be kept at an arm's length. They need to not be given a place to speak. These people are struggling down there. No one knows what the new policy is. No one knows where the separated children are. Nobody knows when these children will be reunited with their parents. They're sitting in 100-degree heat. Some people are in flooded places on the Mexican side of the border, and they're sleeping outside for 3 weeks because this administration purposely closed the ports of entry. Purposely did that. One person, a crying woman with her child waiting along the border by the bridge in Brownsville, she said, what other option do we have but to come? We can't go back. If they see us, they will kill us. We trust in God. We trust in the laws of the United States. They're having mass trials now. Okay, mass trials, which is assembly line justice, if at all, and Trump doesn't even want that. He doesn't even want the bare minimum of due process for anybody. He just the whole thing is disorganized. It's confusing. You got attorneys that are trying to find children. One attorney said, if I showed up to court that unprepared, the judge would yell at me and probably kick me out of the court and tell me I'm doing a disservice to my client. Well, if the government is this confused and this disorganized, they're doing a disservice to the American people. One person says, they're not enforcing, the zero tolerance policy. But in the Rio Grande Valley in South Texas, the U.S. Border Patrol's local office said zero tolerance remains in effect. No one knows what the hell is going on because it's all been doing. He's making policy by tweet in the morning. There has to be accountability here for not following the law on the part of the government. These people are, at worst, committing misdemeanors. At worst. Now, this man, Carlos, with the little 6-year-old who said, please call my aunt, he said he's spoken to his daughter one time in the last 3 weeks. And by the way, he paid Coyotes. He paid $7,000 for them to get him here. You know how hard it is to get $7,000 together when media per capita income is $7,000 for a year? I mean, this is crazy. And it's not even that there. And they turn themselves in. Ann Coulter is comparing this to breaking into her house. When's the last time a robber broke into your house and said, I'm here to turn myself in because if I don't, I'm going to steal from you. So I just wanted to let you know I'm turning myself in. When's the last time a drug dealer said, I'm turning myself in because I have a pocket full of, I have a car full of cocaine? That does not happen. These people are literally, you know why we're called gringos? This has been haunting me all weekend that I never told you. Border Patrol wears green, but before that, before we really had Border Patrol, because we used to be able to have, open borders, and these were the safest cities on the planet, were these border towns. People would come back and forth, and like I said, they would go have dinner on the Texas side, or they would go have dinner on the Mexican side, and then they'd go back to their house, and workers would come, and they'd do the job that nobody wants to do here in America, and maybe they would stay for the season, and they would pocket their money, they'd save, and then they'd walk home, or go home, or take a bus home, or whatever, and that was the way it was, right? But when the 80s came rolling around and we got very involved in illegal wars in these particular three countries, and what wars are going on? We had all these, military guys, and they were wearing green uniforms because that's what the military wears. And what the people of Central America were saying, they would identify these soldiers as Greens because they were wearing green. And they would say to the Greens, go, gringo. That's why we're gringos. And still, they turn themselves into the gringos. They turn themselves in at the border. And they tell them there are organized crime syndicates, there are gangs in the country. We're turning ourselves in, and we need to make a claim for asylum. We have a credible fear of torture in Honduras, a credible fear of death squads, a credible fear of death squads in Nicaragua. Or today, they killed like 250 more students. But nobody knows that. And almost everybody who is able to turn themselves in tells the same story. The same story. And ICE, well, we can't research vague allegations. Everybody's got the same damn story. There's nothing but death in our country. There are dead bodies in the street. There are extrajudicial killings by the government. There are students being gunned down at the engineering school in Managua, in Nicaragua. Oh, they all spoke to each other is what they did. They all spoke to each other. They got on the same page. They all telling this BS story, all of them. This is unbelievable. And we don't know how many parents have been deported without their children so far. This is a horror show. And it was completely avoidable. No one needed to do this. Brian in Florida.
Hi, Randy.
Hey.
I have a question and a statement. My first question is, and I doubt if anybody can answer it, why is he made out of Teflon? No matter what he says, grabbing women by their genitals, he could kill somebody on Fifth Avenue. Nothing ever happens to him. It's like he's made out of Teflon. I don't get it.
Well, it's because of he polls so beautifully with these crazy Republicans. I mean, 90% of the party that he is claiming to be a member of, although he has no principles whatsoever. But
No kidding.
All right, but he identifies as a Republican, and 90% of Republicans are for this extrajudicial, deportation. They don't care about the Constitution. I don't want to hear about the Second Amendment anymore. I want to hear about
you and me both.
I want to hear about the Fifth. I want to hear about the Fourth. I want to hear about equal protection. I want to hear about due process. I want to hear
and the 25th.
Yes, and the 25th, my very new favorite one. Yeah.
I just don't get it. The other thing is a statement I wanted to make. I joke about many things. I'm very serious when I say this. I am so scared for November to come up. I mean, I'm so scared I can hardly breathe. And the reason I'm saying this, last Thursday or Friday, I don't remember the day, but the guy in the White House said something to the effect, get ready for the red wave.
Yeah, I heard that.
And the only thing I'm thinking about is before the election, he made a comment, not only the Russia, if you're listening comment, but he made a comment like he's going to win, like he knew it was already in the cards. And when I heard him say that statement about get ready for the red wave, maybe he knows something that we don't, that it's already fixed for him.
Well, I will tell you today.
terrified.
I will tell you today that the Supreme Court is going to allow the disputed gerrymandered maps in Texas
I read that.
and North Carolina to be used for this election. So there is, and there's going to be a huge voter suppression effort. There'll be disinformation and misinformation about, text your vote. You can't vote by text, or, vote from home. You can't vote from home. I mean, you can if you mail it in certain states. But no. I mean, if he, like I said, today I got, all weekend I was answering emails, but people said, Randy, I've been listening to you for so long, and you always said you would tell us when it's time to flee. And I will. But I said, you know what, give it to the midterms. And let's see if the midterms are smooth, if they're fair, if they're open, whatever. And let's see what happens. And then after November, and it's already, almost July. So we have July, August, September, October. We have like 4.5 months. If it's just, rigged, or if it's, crazy, or if people are suppressed, or whatever happens, if we can't have a check on this president, then I would say, if you're in a position to be able to finance it, get out of here.
Yeah, it's like I told my husband, get ready for the fourth flight. It's coming.
Yeah. Well, I would say that.
Terrified.
I would say that. I really would. I mean, if the midterms aren't going to produce a check on this guy's, illegitimate, irregular disdain for the Constitution and all that goes with it, then it's time to go, because then nobody's protected under the Constitution. If children are protected under the Constitution, then nobody is. And of course, the Constitution does apply to these parents, and it does apply to their children. And if that bet is off, then you're next.
Exactly. And not only am I Jewish, I'm gay. It's like, what is that going to happen to me, Did you read in the Huffington Post what happened to a woman at Walgreens?
No, what?
Oh, my God. My blood was boiling at breakfast this morning when I was reading it. Woman was pregnant. The doctor told the woman her baby is not breathing. It's going to be stillborn. So he wrote out a prescription for her so she would miscarry to get rid of the fetus. She goes to Walgreens. The pharmacist refused to fill it because it's against his morals and religion.
You know who did that? You know who actually created that exception for pharmacists? That was the same guy who's in charge of the Office of Refugee Resettlement. That's Scott Lloyd. Scott Lloyd was an attorney at the Knights of Columbus. He's a devout Catholic. This is why I'm trying to tell you that he really needs to listen to what the Pope says. But he actually is the person that worked really hard for a conscientious objector lane for pharmacists to occupy if they disagreed with a woman's decision or a woman's medical necessity to terminate a pregnancy. And the pharmacist was going to, give her plan B or whatever. He created this objection. So pharmacists could say no to women.
Well, according to Huffington Post, if he objects to it, he's supposed to give it to somebody else to give her the pill.
Right, that's true.
He just refused to do it, and she had to go someplace else.
Yeah. Well, that's.
I am scared for our future.
I am too. This is
serious when I'm saying that.
Now, can you imagine the man that set this up in this way? Okay, because he loves the fetus, obviously hates the child, because he's doing this to 2,053 children. Okay, so this thing about loving the fetus and hating the child removes you from ever being able to stand on any moral high ground. Because I've been saying that for years and years, and now you can plainly see that is true. They're in love with a fetus, but once you're a child, pull yourself up from your booty straps. You're on your own.
I just hope everybody in November not only votes out the Republicans, but they see if the Republicans didn't do a thing, they're complicit.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And you know what? 41 Republicans voted against an immigration package. And then in the Senate, we had one pass, but the House wouldn't take it up because they knew it would pass. There are immigration bills right now, bipartisan ones, that would pass the House right now today with 218 votes. And there was one that passed the Senate. I think it had 68 votes. So they want the issue, okay? They just like talking tough on children. They just like, saying that that children are infesting our country, that children are invaders. Okay, they're Bolsheviks, man. They created a problem that didn't exist, and their solution is to punish children. Jesus Christ.
Mary had a little man, the fall.
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America. From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
Hey!
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
I really believe that whether he is fully aware of it or not, Lee, and you and I have talked about this before, and you too, Chris, that the country is on the cusp of experiencing a tremendous spiritual renewal.
Yes.
And I believe that he is an instrument in the Almighty God's hands to turn some pages and some new narrative to be written.
God has built him for this moment. This is an unusual presidency we'll never see again. And that's what I love about him. And that's why I don't think that anything he says is beyond the pale. You know, I would probably word some things sometimes, but at the end of the day, I'm right there saying, go for it, man. Keep preaching. That's all I got to say is keep preaching President Trump. I'm with you.
God has given me a dream and showed me back in the 80s that he would run and that he would win. A literal dream from heaven. So I believe this is part of God's plan. You just don't have dreams like this. You can't make this up. And I'm telling you, if you are a liberal, you're a Democrat, we're excited that you're at this show today. And I just ask that you open your ears and open your eyes and just see if there's any truth in what we're saying. If you don't like this country and you don't like the president, well, there's a lot of other countries you can go to. Just get out. This is the time to get out because the Trump train is rolling.
Listen, you motherfuckers, we're going to tax you 25%.
I'm going to bomb the shit out of them.
It's very biblical, everybody. It's very biblical. Now, people ask me, why do people support Trump? And it's because they think he's been sent by God to oppress the little children and to rewrite the Bible. They think that, when Jesus said, come unto me, the little ones, that he didn't really mean it. And they meant, I'm going to bomb the shit out of you. I don't know. It's very twisted. It's very weird. This idea that they keep comparing women and children and people who are fleeing certain death, people who are fleeing oppressive governments, people who are fleeing death squads, people who are fleeing, gang war, people who are fleeing the drug cartels, people who are fleeing, bad autocratic governments, communism, and all that stuff that's been, it's tragic what's going on in El Salvador. It's tragic what's going on in Honduras. It's tragic what's going on in Nicaragua. Literally tragic. It's literally a tragedy. And there are people who support Donald Trump that say that those children aren't worth very much, that those children are less than. Those children weren't created by God. Those children were created by somebody else or something else or, somewhere else. And therefore, you don't have to look after little children. You don't have to worry about the situation they find themselves. You don't have to engage in Central America. You don't have to get the OAS together and start talking to these countries and tell them that if they don't straighten this stuff out, they'll be hell to pay. You don't have to do anything. You just have to say they're others and, too bad for you and, go back to where you came from. And if you're an American, by the way, and you believe that you should love your country when it's right, but right it when it's wrong, well, you're not welcome here either. There's plenty of other countries for you to live in, according to the Christians.
I have known some of the top directors in Hollywood, and let me tell you something. Hollywood is full of devil worshippers and pedophiles.
Oh, my God.
I kind of liked being in some movies at first when people offered them to me, and there were nice folks here in Texas. But when I got deeper into Hollywood, I don't want any part of it. You know how much they hate the fact that I rejected major roles?
Major roles?
And back when I rejected them, it was a little bit hard to do, but now I'm so glad I didn't. Now you couldn't pay me $100 million to be in that cesspit, to be around those soulless people, or to be any part of it. It means nothing. And do you know how liberating it is to have all that crap mean nothing to me? Zero, zero, zero. But it means everything to me to know Trump. It means everything to me to know the White House listens.
Oh.
Because they understand that we are the zeitgeist. Just as they are the zeitgeist. Birds of a feather flock together.
Yes.
They fly together. See, I'm in the club of pro-human, the club of not being a coward, the club of not liking pedophiles and waging war against them. I'm in the club of victory. I'm in the club of next-level human development. I'm in the club of not being a piece of crap. Now, how about everybody else join that club right now?
How's that custody battle going for you, Alex? I mean, the stuff that you hear is so sick.
When you break the law, there are consequences. And if you know you're here illegally, guess what? Your family is at risk of being broken up, because that's what happens in a law-abiding society. If you want to get legal, get in line, become a citizen. You don't have to worry about your family being broken up.
Yeah, and it's really, really scary. Some of the individuals that are sneaking across the border, and I was talking to a Border Patrol top person, and he just said, Lee, you cannot believe rape after rape after rape. Children below 10 years old engaging in sexual activity, all kinds of sin and disgrace and darkness, the pit of the pits. And so we're not getting the top of the line echelon people coming over this border. We're getting criminals. I mean, total criminals that are so debased, and their minds are just gone. And the unclean, they're murderers, they're treacherous, they're God haters.
Okay, whose minds are unclean? These people who dwell on 10-year... I swear to God, she's accusing 10-year-olds of being rapists under the auspices of being a godly show. And Alex Jones calling Hillary Clinton, Lucifer, and all of Hollywood devil worshippers, and everybody's a pedophile in their world. Everybody's a pedophile. There are no words. I mean, they talk. She's talking about, we're just getting people who are unhinged. We're getting people who are mentally deficient. Yes, in broadcasting. In broadcasting. It's an epidemic, I tell you. Ann Coulter, those children aren't worth jack crap. Only these children are. Fox and Friends, well, they're not our children. They're not children from Idaho or Texas. They're other people's children. You get these Bible shows where they're sitting there saying 10-year-olds are rapists and these people are unhinged. And Trump was built by God. I mean, honestly, who's unhinged here? If I had to take a guess, I would say the most unhinged person is the person that put Mike Huckabee's new show together. Have you seen that thing? No, only I watch that because I have to. So you don't. But there's a show now on TBN. Even Trump couldn't save him from, the pits of bad ratings. He actually has a show with an announcer, just like Johnny Carson-ish, just like Jimmy Fallon-ish, where he has an announcer. And here's Mike Huckabee. And he comes out to a band. And then he starts talking wackadoodle Bible crap and defending his daughter. It's such a strange, strange show. Wayne in Eugene, Oregon.
Yes, hiya.
Hi.
I called about what I call child trafficking by the Putin-Trump administration. When they deport a parent without returning their children to them, and then put the children up for adoption, that's child trafficking in my view. No matter, I don't know what else you can call it.
It's very creepy. I will say, all these people who are so uber sensitive to pedophilia, and yet there is such an opportunity for these children to be let's just say, manhandled or inappropriately handled or put in unsafe situations by our government, because our government looks for quote unquote sponsors for these children, and we have absolutely no vetting you know what really just to explain this very, very succinctly to people. Let's say, Wayne, you get arrested. Yeah. Let's say you get arrested for a misdemeanor. Let's say you're jaywalking, okay? And some very aggressive cop decides he's going to prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law, and he forces you into the county jail and makes you see a judge in the morning, okay? Because you were jaywalking in the middle of the night, right? And so he takes you in, and during the intake process, he's going to take your wallet, he's going to take your phone, he's going to take, anything that you have of value, and he's going to give you a receipt for it. And yet we're taking people's children, and they don't even get a slip of paper.
Yeah, they have no way of knowing where their children are.
Don't you find that interesting and offensive?
I'd like to follow the money trail with these people that are adopting them. They've paid somebody.
Well,
this is child trafficking, child theft. And one more thing, Randy, about Maxine Waters. I thoroughly support what she's doing, but I've got something new to add that I hope she can pick up. When they go low, we rub their faces in the dirt and manure that they live in.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but shunning and shaming is a quiet, non-aggressive, non-violent way to handle these wackadoodles. Okay, they're.
Yeah, well, I'm talking verbally, of course. And they go low verbally.
They do. They're the first.
We rub their faces in the manure that they live in.
I just believe that we shouldn't even give them any time of day. I just think that, shaming the people in the cabinet, like the Christian Nielsen's who gave press conferences last week that were so roundly debunked. I mean, every fact that she laid out was untrue. Things that she said over and over, things that she stood for. She just lied. The president lies. The president legislates by tweet. This is sick. Sarah lies for him. And then, she denigrates the reporters. The president denigrates journalism. He calls everything fake news. He creates an environment where people don't know, who to believe or what's right, what's wrong anymore.
Go to RandiRhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.